Hey all, Taves here, back playing some more Planet Zoo and back in Tiguidou Zoo. And this is, as you've seen from that little intro section, this is the finishing up of Penguin Point. So quite a lot going on in this one. You saw in the last one a whole bunch of things added, and the swimming pools and all that sort of stuff. This one's starting off with little kind of implied like burrow boxes. I wanted to kind of hide away. You see, I've placed down a bunch of the little small burrows that the penguins can use, and I wanted to kind of hide those away, using these baskets, and I kind of end up making a few things. This is like a little beach point. What I've been really careful to do, as I've done loads of times in Tiguidou, there's always like lots of little views that the guests get into the habitat. So this side is going to be where the guests can see the animals going for like some chill time and some rest. I don't massively like the fact that the burrows are underground. I always sort of feel like that's a little bit, I don't know. It's a really good feature. I just kind of wish that you could actually have them be like small, because when you look at penguin habitats in zoos, they quite often just have these like little tiny cardboard boxes and things knocking around that the penguins can go and hide out and chill and sleep in. This is not, there is basically going to be, and we build that in this episode, but there's going to be like a shelter, like a proper shelter building as part of this habitat. And so these are supposed to just be like resting boxes. They're not necessarily supposed to be, they're like where they stay at night. So yeah, just kind of mixing these up. I use this little barrel. Half of them end up being non-functional, unfortunately, because I used the free build mod in order to move them and place them as close to each other. They look like they should work, but penguins don't really go in them very often, unfortunately. I think it's maybe because I've got loads on top of each other. But yeah, so I built a couple of little custom ones out of bark using the bark pieces. I've placed a few down that look like baskets, and then I've put these barrels down. So I'm trying to hide the fact that it's like an underground thing, really, and just trying to make it look like the penguins just go and sort of chill in there, and then the guest gets to view them. So this is actually this little path. I don't think I showed you this path in the last episode, but this path is running right along Seal Beach, or alongside Seal Beach, if you remember that one from ages ago. And I have actually done a bunch of updates to Seal Beach that I'm going to share with you at some point. So yeah, just trying to finish this off using the free build mod. You can place path like that, so you can have path overlapping. Really good like little cheat is to use the chipboard, or not chipboard, the bark path texture, just to kind of add this, as a texture inside the habitat. Just trying to like make multiple little points of interest that guests can see into the habitat. So yeah, a bunch of little, some foliage, try and roughen all that up. And as you can see, well, like one of the things I always try and stick to as a bit of a rule is that I don't like guests looking at other guests. So if you notice, this is all slightly raised. And that's not only to give the guests a better perspective of the animals in the habitat, but it's also to mostly block the view of other guests. So if you see that we're looking from this path towards another piece of glass in the background there, I don't want guests to be able to look at each other, if that knows what I mean, because it feels like it just sort of ruins the immersion. Even if you're just slightly hiding the guests, it feels like it kind of really does help. So yeah, putting a viewpoint in, continuing the sort of theming that I'd used for like the tapirs and all that sort of thing, using this rock texture. This ends up being, I think I say this about a lot of my habitats, but every time I build a habitat, it's like my favourite habitat for a while. There's some really fun ideas in this one. I at this point of recording this voiceover, I haven't exactly worked out what my thumbnail is going to be. The trouble that I often have when I create a habitat is that I find loads of things, little bits that I think would be cool thumbnails. So there's a few different things that you're going to see as we go through this that I definitely think I'm considering as thumbnail options. But you obviously know what the thumbnail is because you're ahead in time than me. So here's another view. This is looking at the pool that has. This is a pool that actually don't get to view that much from the other side, but this is the pool that has the underwater glass enclosures in. So actually, we're looking at a view, kind of again like a separate view of the animals, using some of that wooden texture that I've used all around the tapirs, and what else did I? What else was? I'm trying to remember what else was in that habitat. Oh, the capybaras were in that habitat as well. So yeah, continuing that theme in, and then just putting a little sign in. So I've ended up with a few kind of common signs now, over the period of time that I've been building Tiguidou, and I've now got a few of my own sort of custom signs advertising different features of the zoo. So I considered using that there, but actually ended up using the underwater view as well. So this is an underwater. That's a screen that plays it's actually two videos put together to make it into a portrait style, but it's a view of what you would get if you were underwater, and that you get if you go into one of the underwater dome things. So yeah, finishing off a bit more of the barrier on this side. As you can see, that actually sort of in the distance there, that's Seal Beach. So as I said, we're right up against that now, and so this is getting some tweaks, and this is actually one of the viewpoints that I created ages ago for Seal Beach, and it, because I was working on this path, tends to be the way that I do stuff, is that quite often I'm fiddling in an area and end up going back and redoing something. So this was a wooden structure that I'd had for ages, that was a sort of shading area, with a keeper, what's that called? Educator's talk point. But I thought I'd just bring it up, sort of update it in line with the other shaded section that's alongside. That's the glassed floor piece that was in the previous episode. So using this new, it's not new at all now, but this conservation piece to create these is really cool. And actually, I've done a fairly similar. I think I did it after this, but I've made a fairly similar change in the rest of Seal Beach, so that all of these things feel like they're all probably a bit more similar and sort of connected together. So now we're working on the main building, and this is, I don't know if I really explained this in the previous episode. It's a while ago, so I can't remember exactly what I said in the commentary, but one of the ideas of this habitat was that this main pathway goes right through the centre of the habitat. And I think in the last episode, we created an underpass that the animals could go through, that the penguins could go through. We've got two types of penguin in this. And I always had the intent that there was going to be a building here that would be their main sort of shelter, have their indoor pool and actually all the kind of water filtration equipment and that sort of thing. And then you see that path where you walk through all the way through the habitat. So this is where they get shut up at night. I spent ages on this building because I really didn't want it just to be a square box. And I wanted to make sure that I was using that section, because that's the river coming down the hill up at the top of the screen there. So I wanted to make sure I was incorporating that. So I spent quite a lot of time fiddling with this building, trying to get the footprint of it right. And I wanted to make sure that I was having both something that was kind of an interesting guest area, but also, space is a premium in Tiguidou. It's a small map. If you're new to this channel or you're new to this series, I've used one of the scenario maps for this. So it's actually smaller than the usual map, which is the reason why when I first started doing that, I thought this would give me the opportunity to get the zoo done quicker. But actually what it's meant is, because it's a smaller map, I've ended up just forcing more detail into all of the spaces. So yeah, here is a building that's a good example of that. This ends up being a building that's has three purposes. So you'll see me putting some exhibit boxes in here, But you can also see in the background the penguins. So the penguins are using this as their shelter building. At the moment, they're accessing it through the underpass that we built in the previous episode. But they also will have another way of getting into it, which we'll see in a bit. So yeah, here's me putting in a couple of exhibit bots. If you're looking at that and thinking, how have you managed to get 2 exhibit boxes overlapping like that? Again, that is using the free build mod that lets you kind of overlap things and turn them upside down and all that sort of thing. So, and I've actually decided to make the exhibit boxes much shallower. So you'll see that I've put a fake wall in the back there, and I'm making these much smaller than they actually are. So making it look like there's some kind of rubber seals alongside the glass, where the glass interacts with the brick. And you can also see, I didn't really mention it as I was doing it, but this sort of pillar structure, I actually quite liked that in the end. Again, I played around with it for ages. And you can see, like, as soon as you just add like a little bit of an information screen, some new lights and things, I did end up adding some mesh into that one as well, that they start to feel like they're proper exhibit boxes, and that they don't look like you've just cut them in half. So that's the first use of the building. The second use of the building is what you see me starting to work on now. So as you can see, I've got an overhanging roof here, like a gazebo roof. Is that the right? I guess probably not the right word for that. But yeah, like an overhanging roof that's an outside space. So I thought I would end up using this as like a restaurant space. So I'm building a deck now. So an outside deck, because actually there's not so far a lot of food and drink spots in Tiguidou. There's one right up at the main entrance that we built, and then there's a place over by the Badgers that's like a coffee hut. But I thought we're getting towards the bottom of the zoo now, so probably appropriate to have another refreshment area. So creating this little deck, custom deck. And it gives you a lovely little spot actually to sit alongside the river. But it's all kind of squeezed in. So we've got to use multi-purpose buildings for all of these things. So yeah, just creating this little, giving it some support, lining it out with some timber. I've used this like mottled green texture or colour on the walls. I actually really like that. Again, I played around with different colours of everything for ages and settled on this eventually. So there's my covered area, and putting a bit of a fence in. So my intention at this point is this is going to be somewhere where guests are going to sit and have a drink, chill out before they go around the rest of the zoo. So just making sure that barrier, again, create a little custom barrier here, making sure that barrier is the right sort of height. So you saw me just drag in some peeps there just to compare them to. I have to say, actually, I think there's been some recent, I don't know if this was in the last patch, but certainly I've seen performance increase recently. So I think they've done something to allow me to play in Tiguidou better. I'm getting about, 40 frames or something on pause at the moment. And it is playable unpaused, even with guests in, which is probably not worth recording. It doesn't look like a particularly clean picture. So I've put some tables in now. And you might be wondering how I'm going to get the restaurant in. So here I am putting a kiosk in, and it would be really cool. I think there's a really cool feature, which I don't think you can do. I've checked a little bit, but I don't think you can do, unless I'm mad and someone can tell me in the comments. You can't link the restaurant tables to one of these kiosks. So I think this is just I can't remember which one I actually used, but it's a food and drink spot anyway. Let's just say it's a Mr. Fritz or something. I don't think you can link the tables that are. Oh, it's a pizza. Is that a pizza? Yeah, it's a pizza place. You can't link the restaurant tables to it. So I didn't really realise that at the time, but I did it, and I sort of thought I'm going to try and make it work. So here's something weird going to happen. So I'm now trying to find a place to hide the restaurant. As long as you have the restaurant within a spot that is close enough to the tables, the guests will go and sit on the tables. We all know how this works. They kind of teleport. So this might look a bit mad at the moment, but I've turned the restaurant upside down again using the freebuild mod, and you can see the guests going in there and appearing over at my tables. So I think that looks like, and you'll see this when I think I'm going to do a separate tour episode, by the way, guys, of this once it's finished. It's all finished at the end of this episode, but this one's already quite long. So I think I'll do a separate tour episode. So I think that looks like people go and access the kiosk and then they sit down at the tables. You'll have to let me know what you think. And then I'm going to have a problem. I've got to hide the fact that there's an underground restaurant somewhere. But I've done that in a load of places in Tiguidou. I'm quite good at hiding things and sneaking them away. So I think that would be all right. So this is the tunnel. This is the access way to the underwater domes. So I thought I'd give this a bit of a jazz up, because it was a bit of a kind of boring little brick corridor. So I put another outside water area. So this is, again, I haven't showed the inside of this building yet because there isn't anything in the inside of this building. But this is going to be a secondary pool that the penguins can go and swim in if they want to, because I'm going to put quite a lot of penguins in here. So so we've got like an inside outside pool going on here. So this is the inside of the building. I'm just creating it, the lining of it. You can see I've put glass up so it can hold water, and then there will be a view of the penguins that people can get when they're walking down to go to the underwater domes, if that makes sense. So you'll see, weirdly, there's penguins floating everywhere. It's because I've had it paused and I'm trying to work out how to use this space. So this is now the inside space, and you can see that pool there that I'm working on is the inner pool that the penguins will use. So this is basically like the spot where they get shut up if they need to be shut up, or if they, at night they can be shut in. There's a little kind of beach section for them to sit in. So there's a lot of water going on in this habitat. If you remember from the previous episodes, there's now like 5 pools in this penguin point. So what a lot of this building ends up being is actually kind of the mechanics of what I think would need to happen when there's that amount of water in a habitat. So it ends up being a lot of like filtration and all that sort of thing. This is me working on a little access door, so there ends up being a little way that the penguins get outside. And then I'm working on that exterior pool for them, just applying a bit of a lining. This actually reminded me, weirdly, of working on the tropical dome, if anyone remembers that from a long time ago, where everything was like concrete lined. I quite like this really sort of simple, basic pool. It's supposed to feel like it's not off exhibit, but it's not a view that the guests are going to get much of, other than that underwater view that they can see. So I end up creating you can see I changed the colour completely there, decided that this ends up being somewhere that I might imply keepers can come out to as well. So a few little fixes later, you see I've lined all the inside out with concrete now. The white section that you're seeing there that I'm in the glass is obviously where the penguins are going to be. So I've pulled the glass up. They can now get through that little access way outside, and then this is where I'm all starting to add all kind of implied machinery and pipe work and all that sort of thing. Putting one of the water filters in there, not accessible by the keepers, but it's not used anyway, so I've got all that stuff turned off in creative mode. But yeah, just to give it, like, these things have got really cool textures to them, so I don't use them very often because I think they're a bit bulky and a bit clunky, but if you sink them into things, they can give you quite interesting details and stuff that you can't get otherwise. So putting a little bridge in because the keepers need to be able to walk across there, and it's supposed to be that there's this tank that they can access, and then all of the machinery that goes on around the sides of it. So putting a little barrier in, and then this became, I don't remember when I decided to do this, but this became the thing that took a lot of work in this habitat. So I decided I wanted to line the whole of the inside of the building. I've got a really complicated combination of roofs going on here. There's lots of different pitches going on. There's lots of different sections all kind of fitting together. So I decided that rather than using the brick texture inside, I would line all of the inside walls out in this kind of two-tone. You can see it on the left-hand side there. The bottom of the wall is white or sort of grey, and then the top of the wall is a slightly lighter blue. Ends up being a really cool finish, but it was a lot of work. I'm cutting most of it out in this speed build. But yeah, it's interesting because I have talked about a bunch of times making a tips video for building, but one of the things that is definitely a tip that I think I've mentioned before is that if you double line all your walls, you can hide all sorts of tricky little situations away. So if you, as I sort of said, so what I mean by double lining is that the outer wall and the inner walls are separate. So what that means is you can get to, as you see me doing here, hide away bits of roof and things that don't quite look right. In fact, you can see me, I've just pulled that wall away from the outer wall there, and it's usually in order to make sure that I haven't got something sticking through or to hide it away. Once you've finished it, you can't really tell. It all looks like it's supposed to have been like that. So you end up with a sort of a line of the building from the outside that's much cleaner, and a line of the building on the inside that's much cleaner. So yeah, here's some detailing. Most of the structure is now done. You can see I've had this sort of like little dado rail, I think that's called, between the light section, the grey section, and the bottom section. So if you're someone that's watched me for a while, you'll know I love a bit of detailing. I think most of the exhibits come to life, or the habitats come to life, when you add some detailing. So I thought, what would it be going on in here? The penguins on the other side of the barrier. Maybe let's have a freezer in here. So that's what that's supposed to be. Adding some buckets in. Actually decided to use the shelves from the shop in here. It's quite nice little narrow shelves. As you see, if you sink those down, they're quite effective as like little shallow shelves to use. Shallow shelves, that's like a tongue twister. Yeah, so then I thought I'd just be filling this out, thinking about how it would be used. It's going to need to be cleaned. It's going to need to be mopped out. I go back to adding some more details to this fridge because I feel like it looks a bit plain. Add some of these electrical things onto the side again, just to like give it a bit more interest. Actually, it's a fairly simple thing, but a few little details to that change it away from it feeling like a box to it getting to the point where it's actually looking like a fridge. So yeah, you saw me added a few vents and things in there. Actually, by that stage, you can see I haven't finished lining out the walls. It took me, as I said, absolutely ages. So I think this is a stage in the build where I'm rewarding myself with some detailing rather than having to get stuck in to the job of having to finish all those walls out. So yeah, putting a few boxes and things. Again, all of this is just like, I guess the process of how I do this is mostly just imagining how the space might get used and imagining fun ways to make it interesting and a bit of detail. There gets quite a lot of detail added to this, and you'll see, as I said, when I have done the tour video, which hopefully won't be will be fairly soon, because it's not a difficult one to create once I've actually finished the build. When you see all the tour video, you see that I've add all the decals to the floor and all that sort of stuff to scuff it up. Yeah, adding a little wash area. Again, I'm thinking that the keepers and things are going to probably need to like wash up after they've been with the animals. I don't know why, you can sort of see it at the moment, but I've got like a wooden fence that I actually completely end up changing around, because at the moment I've got bits that don't need to be fenced off. So a few pipes and stuff. This is supposed to look like this is all the things that keep in the water clean in this habitat. So linking up a few pipes with the pools is kind of the bare minimum of getting that really. It's funny, as you start to layer these things up. So here's me putting in, you can see like it's getting there, it's starting to get there. Putting in some aircon now, as you start to layer these things up, it's when the habitat really starts to like look finished and complete and stuff. So yeah, I'm adding in this whole. This is me thinking that whole aircon section is just kind of suspended and needs to be held up by something. Also, I'm going to want to get some lighting in here, so I add this kind of. I guess you'd call this like a girder structure into the roof. That's going to end up being the thing that holds up the aircon as well as the lighting. So there are going to be, this is the final stage of this actually, this is the zebra crossing. So you will have to watch the next episode, which as I said will be the tour of this, where you'll see this actually working. It's a really cool, like fun little feature where I open and close a gate and the penguins will cross this zebra crossing. They'll change the route in which they're going into the habitat and they'll come across this gate instead. So, but as I said, that's going to be annoyingly, that's going to be the next one, guys. So, thank you very much for watching. My name is Toves, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take it easy.